Hey guys, Luxqaer here. 2021. What a year it was. Starting from a potential fall of a big nation's government to the Coney virus spreading around all over the world still. And ending on a year where there's still a bunch of destruction going on. Yay! But you know what? I think it's a pretty great year of all things media overall. Coming out of the rut that was 2020, 2021 managed to establish itself as coming out of its issues rather well. From music to movies and finally to video games. Which some of them I played this year and have become my favorite games of all time. In this video, I will briefly talk about all the games I finished for the first time this year, and just my overall thoughts on them. I completed 34 new games this year, which is pretty good for someone now working at a retail store for 7 hours for 5 days a week. But who cares? I felt very accomplished. If you want to discuss more of the games I'm going to show off here, leave your thoughts in the comments. Basically, I'm doing a rundown of each game I completed for each month and discuss them in the order I completed them. At least according to my backlog, which you should follow by the way. I update my gaming playthroughs on there pretty frequently. I'll have a link to it in the description. Now, with everything out of the way, let's get started! I just want to say this right now. This is a fantastic remake. Based off the game made for the Super Famicom in 1995, the Trials of Mana remake scratches that itch that I had for a 3D action RPG for a long time. The game has a great cast of characters that I find awesome in my own opinion. Of course, Reese is my favorite one out of the main playable characters, but Duran, Angela, and Charlotte are pretty good in their own right. Plus, the remastered music is fantastic, and some songs outperform the original games by a mile. The gameplay overall, though, is pretty easy, but you can make it more challenging with no future mode that I wish I had played. The game is colorful, and I love Square Enix's use of Unreal Engine 4 to really capture the look of this game, even though it can feel a bit half-baked in some areas. After playing the original game for the first time last year, and instantly falling in love with it, the Trials of Mana remake is easily the best remake/remaster of a Mana game so far. Even the additions such as adding in the Korok-like little cactuses and the extra dungeon after beating the game is a nice addition. Though if I have something negative to say about this, please change Salamander's voice, please?
Nothing yet.
Now we go from a pretty great remake to a really shitty mobile port that came to the Switch in 2019. Based off the 1987 game, Dragon Quest II was the first game to truly try to expand on the stuff brought from the first Dragon Quest game. Unfortunately, this game didn't do much for me for a few reasons. For one, I hate the MIDI feeling of the music in this game. I know the series is notorious for this, because of the now deceased composer being very stringent on how he wants his music in his games, but this doesn't work very well here. For its time, it's a decent RPG, but a lot of stuff didn't age well still with the mobile port. Like the fact that you can just outright lose a party member if you sleep at a specific inn, and you must travel all over the world just to find that one Yggdrasil leaf to revive him. What a huge pain. Also, even though this version was made less difficult than the earlier version, the endgame area is still obnoxious with its difficulty. Overall, not a very good game. I was very excited to try out the OG Doom on the Switch last year. I really enjoyed this game for the most part, and I can see why this has become a big phenomenon in the 90s. And was one of the main reasons why parents make sure their kids aren't playing this game.
Don't interrupt me.
Until I played the sequel and... yeah... I didn't have the best experience with this game. While the game added a plethora of new content while retaining the same engine as the original Doom, I just felt like that the gameplay just felt very, I don't know, not good. The level design felt very all over the place, and very rarely I felt that same magic I had while playing Doom 1. The enemies are obnoxious and frustrating, as well as the levels. I'm not very great at shooters in general, but this just didn't feel great to play, especially in some levels where you must be very precise to not die or start the whole level over again. Wasting your time. There's a really good video by FP on Doom 2 that I highly recommend watching because it highlights a lot of problems I had with this game on my first playthrough. Overall though, I would just give this a pass. Here's a new game I played this year. Not this game because it's a pretty good Wii U port. I'm talking about the side game, Bowser's Fury. And let me tell you, this game is very meh. Okay, put down your pitchforks, everyone. Let me explain. While I like the concept of having a timely cycle while going from island to island seamlessly through the world to do some platforming challenges, I don't know, there just wasn't enough to get this concept realized. While I did have fun, the game is super short. Getting everything in this game can take around 5 to 6 hours if done casually. And it just went away before I knew it. The Bowser sections, on the other hand, were super fun, and I would happily take this as its own game. But just doing island hopping to do just a little bit of platforming, it just wasn't for me. The future of 3D Mario is very bright starting for this game, but this wasn't it, Chief. The next two games are part of a collection of games I play on the Mega Man X Legacy Collection released in 2018. I was very interested in trying out this game because it had a lot of hype around it. Like, even my cousin's grandfather is talking about it. I did watch some playthroughs and speedruns of this game for myself before playing it, and when I first played it, what do you know? It's actually pretty good. While I had some shaky first impressions, the level design in this game is awesome. I liked how each area changes depending on what Maverick you have to be in. I adore X's moveset and how the dash mechanic is very useful in so many situations. The music is absolutely outstanding with so many bangers, I don't know where to choose. My only gripes I have with it are some of the later Sigma stages aren't the best designed. One is just going from one Maverick to another and then reach the boss of that stage, and since this is my first time playing one of these games, I had a bit of a rough time getting used to the feeling of this game. Also, Zero's an awesome character I think is better than X. Don't at me! Also, Vile is a great antagonist and would happily have him to be the final boss and whatever this guy is. Overall though, a very great game from the SNES library. I didn't finish much then this month. Only this okay game. Okay, right after playing the first Mega Man X and jumping right into this one soon afterwards, wasn't the best idea on my end. For one, the stages felt frustrating and the new power-ups added to this game didn't help much. The jump dash was good and all, but everything else just didn't work out. On top of fighting the X-Hunters, one of them being one of the biggest pains in the robo-groin I came across over my whole time playing this game, I just finished the game feeling frustrated. Also, you don't get to see Zero in this game until the very end. Why is that? Look, I know to the main X fans that this game is great and all, but I would happily play a better platforming sequel than I believe to be much better than the original than this game. Did I just mention I didn't finish much in March at all? Yeah, for the rest of the month in March and finishing in the beginning of April, I have completed my first Fire Emblem game. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. What is there to say about this game? It's such a superb game all around. And while the game in some respects isn't the greatest, the interactions with other classmates and deciding who to join in your house by working towards it is an awesome thing you can do in this game. Especially since there are a wide range of characters you can choose from that are very good in their own right. I'll appreciate the characters' dynamics in this game and how they evolve after the time skip. how Edelgard transformed into this all-powerful being that you can somewhat see why they do the things they do, Dimitri losing his way after he was ousted by the Empire by becoming delusional and bound to try and kill Edelgard at all costs, and Claude, well, he's just Claude. Also has kick-ass music when you play the Fur and Wind route like what I first did. I have yet to complete all the routes, and I hope one day that I have lots of free time somewhere I will go through the Blue Lions route. As I heard from many people that it has the best story out of all of them, even if the game didn't have a great story to begin with. I can talk about more things, like how the music is so gosh darn amazing, how each character's side story really improved on the world building of this game, or how the fishing minigame is secretly the best part of the game. Don't at me, even though I like the time button presses because it reminds me of the QTEs and Xenoblade's battle system. But this video would drag on for another 10 minutes. Overall, one of the best JRPGs on the Switch, and a great game if you want to get into Fire Emblem. Oh boy, perhaps one of the most disliked X games that is not X6 or X7. Zero doesn't play great in this game, and getting everything 100% sucks so hard that I would chug down an energy drink and chug the drink into the stratosphere. No, in all honesty, I find this to be a very great game that is worth it in the X library. I think the X games have an excellent formula that works. The levels themselves are fine overall, and I find them very fun to play. I like the fact that Zero, even though isn't the most useful, is playable at long last. I especially like how you stumble on this weird warp point that takes you to a surprise visit from our good boy Vile. This game, albeit controversial, is a great game to go through and still have a fun time with. And that's really with Mega Man X games. There are preferences to each of the games, but I do think the game that comes after this one is one of my favorites in this series I don't care much about. After seeing a ton of videos, speedruns, the Netflix show, and trying to main Simon in Smash, I finally finished the first Castlevania for the first time. And man, what a classic. The NES, to be honest, isn't my favorite console in the world. So many of the games from that era felt unappealing, and only a few select games interested me a lot. One of those games is the original Castlevania. What really stuck out to me about this game is the challenge really felt great and felt like a great compromise to how new I was to these games. The strategy of moving Simon and attacking at the right times felt very rewarding to people who have a lot of patience playing these types of games. The limitations of the NES really helped with this. Because of how Simon moves around defeating enemies, bosses, and the like feels very satisfying. I love how short the game is also because it makes the challenge of getting to this point very rewarding. I especially love how this game references a lot of horror icons, but has so much fun toying around with them in the credits. Dracula is no exception. Such a fantastic game to the NES's library. Now, here's a game that I wish would live up to the legacy of the original game, but fails miserably. For one, I like how the game feels more open-ended, but the game feels needlessly restrictive by having you collect this one item to progress through the game. But good luck figuring that out, hurdy. This game back in the day was made for you to get a guide from Nintendo Power. Because even though I knew a lot of stuff going into it before I played it, I still had to look up a guide to make sure I'm going the correct path. This game isn't even challenging, just a big maze that could take you hours to get through. Even the bosses, perhaps one of the best parts about the NES Castlevanias, are noticeably easy in comparison. I'm kind of glad that Konami seems to forget this game's existence because wow, this is not an enjoyable one. Time to get into some horror action games, and Bioshock Remastered was one of them. For not being much of a shooter guy myself, I have to say what an incredible game this is. Just the world building around this city that fell into ruin, and how you progress through the game that felt exciting. The awesome weapons, the collectible tapes you get explaining the lore of this game, to the big daddies themselves and their Hulk smashing abilities. It all felt right. While this is many people's favorite game, I had a few problems with it. Number one is that I'm not much of a fan of having to do pipe puzzles very often. It drags down the pace of the game for me, even when you get into a pretty tense encounter with some enemies, and that if you fail, you have to start the whole pipe puzzle over again. It's so strange. Also, it's very weird how there's an interview in this remaster with Jeff Keighley and the Bioshock creators, and how it splits into multiple parts. Like, what am I, Netflix? Solid game, but I really am slumping on the next two games in the series that came with Bioshock the Collection. Hopefully I can get to those next year. Hey, it was on sale for $15 in May. Like, I had to buy it! This 2D platformer is inspired by the Donkey Kong Country games, and it really shows in the level formula. Each level to me felt very uninspired, but it has a lot of stuff added to it to keep those interests flowing. It's not that the levels are bad at or anything, it's just that they didn't capture the wow factor that I had with the modern DKC games as of late. Let's compare this with Tropical Freeze. The game has a lot of great levels with interesting gimmicks that kept the game going. Minecarting through a sawmill plant, hopping from one totem pole to another, and some very awesome boss fights. While Yooka-Laylee, on the other hand, is trying to follow in the footsteps of this game while not doing the most spectacular at it. For one, every time you get hit, Laylee flies away from you and you have to chase her down to get your extra hit back. The problem with this formula is Laylee is next to impossible to catch most of the time, and I keep failing trying to pick her up. I would much prefer just losing a hit outright and just getting her back from the Laylee bell. Next is the lack of boss fights in this game besides the final boss. I found this to be a letdown because I'm so used to having games like this to have a nice variety of bosses to tackle along with the levels. But no, you just get to go through 30 oddly long levels and expect to take it. Look, I know I'm kinda harsh on this game, but I genuinely feel this game is following in the footsteps that didn't need to be there. Well, what does it do differently from the tried and true formula? Well, the overworld feels like its own little game, with you needing to solve puzzles to open the next area. It's a cool little mechanic I really enjoyed, but I feel like it's the only thing that people exclaim why this is a very good game. I think the game is fine, but all the other things I mentioned earlier just makes it hard to recommend. Hands down, the best X game from the collection. I love the level design of this game, and compliments both X and Zero, who has probably the best playstyle of any platformer that I played. The amount of detail the game adds to the lore with how Reploids are designed to be dangerous and there being an intelligence agency wanting to exterminate them all feels very fleshed out. Even though I still don't care for Sigma though. On the bright side, I enjoy the new Reploids I come across and thought they were a nice addition to this game. Double, one of your helpers, is revealed to be a spy brought by this guy to destroy X and the rest of the Maverick Hunters. And Zero's partner Iris, who dies and commits Zero to scream his biggest nightmares into existence! Overall, I enjoy this game more than the other ones because of the better additions brought by the PS1's power, although I find this mofo to be a big pain in the arse at the end. After finishing X4 and getting the achievements, except the stupid one in X1 that I can never get for the life of me, that I found that I can just feasibly do, I was rather content with the games I played. The emulation used to power these games is probably the best way to play those games. Along with everything else like the extras brought to the table, it really felt like a great collection, even though I'm not much of a Mega Man guy myself. After feeling very hyped about the new Metroid game, I talked with someone on Discord to see if AM2R can still be found online after Nintendo shut down the original project. Lo and behold, it was back up once again, and I was up to try it out. I have to say, Dr. M64 really did a great job at creating a remake of the original Metroid 2. It's a bit like how Zero Mission approached how it wanted to remake its original game by adding smart choices to the level design and the addition and reimagining of boss fights. It's an awesome fan game, and I really wish Nintendo hired this guy instead of throwing his fan game out into the streets ready to collect dust. Finally! A game that released this year! And they're just ports of games that released a half a decade ago. Okay, look, I'm glad these games are at long last are able to come to the West, and I cannot be happier about it. The Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2 are such a phenomenal duology, and easily the best games in the series for me. The localization, as always, is top notch with a detail on the culture that has surrounded these games in their respective time. I like how realistic everyone feels, like Soseki being treated in England as a nobody while being suspected of murder, or how Fonzies really is racist towards Japanese, but later in the story changes to reflect on the main character Ryunosuke's actions to changing the English legal system. His bravery is what changed him, and that's how the story goes from there. I already covered a video on the Great Ace Attorney on this channel, which goes more in depth of what I think of the game, but this has been one of my favorite games for me so far this year. Yet another remaster of a modded game that released over 2 decades ago. Though this one is honestly very good. Although many people didn't like this game for how hard it is to follow a narrative, if there even is one. But this game is unique because you get to build the world around you and plan out what you want to do while going for the end game. What I appreciate the most are the side quests, some of them being some of the best I've seen in a JRPG. And let's talk about the music. Yoko Shimomura was right in it being some of her best work. The remastered version even sounding a lot better than the originals, not to mention one of the deepest and rewarding crafting systems I've ever had to partake in. I loved how something so mundane like making a better spear, for example, felt so gratifying once what is needed to be put into those weapons and armor in order to make the best in the business. While Square Enix really didn't add much to this remaster with new content, I appreciate the game regardless. I made a review on Backloggd about how much of a great time I had with this game. Full link to the review in the description. Helltaker. What a game. Very short and interesting, completed everything in the game in 3 hours, and that's it. The girls are cool. My favorite one being the one in the secret final level. Level being a pain in the ass, by the way. And that was it. Nothing more to say here. Oh yeah, did I mention this game was free on Steam? Man, going almost 4 months after playing the last game? Well, I just have to say, this is a very frustrating game. Playing the NES version made me cry on so many occasions. It is a brutal game through and through, which was why I went back to playing this game on the easier Famicom version. I have to say though, what a fantastic return to form. The level design is better than ever, despite some very questionable enemy placements. And well, the stairs. Even with those off-putting decisions, this game is probably one of the best NES games on the library. Each playable character feels very fun to play, especially Sypha, who is one of the most broken characters in the game with her thunder magic, just making enemies just go away. I especially like how the game has multiple endings depending on which character you finish the game with, each expressing their thoughts about defeating Dracula, with Alucard's being very depressing, I'll be honest. And who can forget the music? Sure, the first 2 games had some great tracks, but I feel like this game took it up by a lot. Just a great game overall. Just don't play the NES version. Coming up right after playing the 3rd game, we go into the 4th one. To be honest, I thought this game was going to be one of my favorite games because of how much hype it got back in the early 90s. I just find it to be a great game. it was a lot more challenging than I thought, especially since Simon this time can just whip in all 8 directions and do so much more with the whip this time than anything. But to be honest, I kind of like the original game slightly more. That's probably because this game brings us back so much nostalgia of watching speedruns and knowing so much about how this game works, compared to a game that has more complicated factors in mind, such as the frequent use of the SNES's new capabilities to add very gimmicky parts to the stage. I still enjoy the game to an extent, and I really like the rearrangements to the iconic themes, but it's just a great game in a hollow vacuum. Despite the dislike towards the game nowadays, I find it to be the best 3D platformers out there. Like, it's really good. So good, in fact, that I got all the achievements on Steam because I liked it a lot. To start, the game is very hilarious. I like Bobby Zilch because he acts like a stereotypical bully character from like some funny cartoon show. And the mine worlds that genuinely felt like it belonged to these characters. Creativity is the name of the game here, and using the size, such as the one you can run on a ball and fly all over the place, is some of the most fun I had with this game. I can't wait to get to the sequel too, because I had so much fun with this game that I wanted to play that so much more. Talk about a game that was just there to push a third party on the Game Boy during its launch year. It just didn't do so much for the console or the series in general. With 4 meandering stages, this is one of the shortest and most frustrating experiences I had to go through the Castlevania collection. I played it while we were on trip up north and I couldn't have fun getting into it. I abused save states while fighting Dracula at the end because I just wanted it to be over with as quickly as possible. Such a bad game. Stay away from it. Whoa! What an awesome glow up to this game. With it having an in-game story about wanting revenge against Christopher Belmont's son Soleil's disappearance. The game is a far cry from the archaic formula the first game on the Game Boy had. Heck, I find this better than Castlevania II on the NES. With you getting sub-weapons rather than whip power-ups. This felt so much more significant than the original game. The game had a decent challenge, and the surprise fight against Soleil at the end was quite unexpected for sure. Overall, an awesome sequel, but not up to par with the rest of the Castlevanias. Weird how this horror-filled game is released on St. Patrick's Day, but okay. With it being the only Castlevania game on the Genesis, this is as good as the other Castlevanias that came on the consoles before it. For one, you get to play as 2 different characters, John Morris, who uses a classic whip, and Eric Luxqaer, who I much prefer because he uses a freaking speed lance. I find the gameplay to be much better than Super Castlevania IV, even though the moveset is much better in the former. The levels are decent, and the levels I feel are more interesting in this game than SC4. Even though not much changes if you choose different characters, only the ending is a bit different. Playing as both gives off quite a unique challenge. I find to be great in this game. My only issue is the limited continues, which I find kind of a bummer in all honesty, as every single past game had unlimited continues, making you try the game over from where you left off and keep going with it. Here it feels almost arcadey, and I don't know how I feel about it. Great Genesis game, and I'll give it the Castlevania seal of approval. Hey look! A first for the Americas as it was stuck in Japan since the early 90s! Okay, in all seriousness though, this isn't a great game, and doesn't really surpass the magic it feels to me. It feels more like a classic Mega Man clone, but I find much better because Kid Dracula can shoot up.
Hold on a second, there are several special weapons that allow Mega Man to shoot up. Thunder Beam, Metal Blade, Leaf Shield, Shadow Blade, Pharaoh Shot, Gyro Attack, Star Crash, Commando Bomb, Scramble Thunder, Thunderstorm, Bubble Bomb, Magic Card, Ballad Cracker, Flame Shower, Flame Mixer, and Yoga Inferno all allow Mega Man to shoot up. In addition, The wire doubles as a grappling hook that allows you to latch onto the ceiling, and if you play as base, the Base Buster allows you to shoot up without even using a special weapon.
Wait a second. Let's go back a little ways.
Flame Shower, Flame Mixer.
You do realize that Flame Mixer is actually a base special weapon and not a special weapon Mega Man uses.
And if you play as base, the Base Buster allows you to shoot up without even using a special weapon.
It was an honest mistake, but even the living and breathing Mega Man encyclopedia can't definitively say that Mega Man can shoot up. The point goes to Kid Dracula. But in all honesty, the gameplay is nothing special. There's a cool boss fight with the literal Statue of Liberty, and tests your knowledge about the game in American history for some reason? Yeah, I kind of have a hard time wondering what the audience pertains to this game. Is it a platformer? Is it an action game? Or a trivia and minigame game? Also, F that final level. Worst level in Castlevania hands down. Having to go from boss to boss in one succession without dying is like drinking ice cubes. Cute game, but not a great Castlevania game. Honestly, one of the best collections I've ever played. Minus some pretty questionable games on there, I found it pretty awesome. Playing through these games can take you a good few days, and having not there being any achievements in the Switch version is fun for older players wanting nostalgia. Also, I really enjoy this extra digital book that comes with the collection detailing developer interviews, level concepts, and summaries of each of the game's collections. I like it more than the stuff brought into the X Legacy collection. Give this game a shot whenever it goes on sale. This is a fantastic homage to the original N64 games that made the genre what it is. The pure fun racing is fantastic without it being too gimmicky. The fun stuff that was added, like the dinosaurs and the UFOs, giving this game a funny childish personality. My only gripes with it are how much little content there is to the game. Completing every single race and getting each car only took me a few sessions to complete. Also, I wish there was an online mode. Playing against computers in this game just doesn't feel right. I want to play this with my online friends, and not with people locally. And at the time of scripting this though, there has been something that came out from the developers confirming they are adding an online mode soon. And honestly, I can't wait to see what that is. Otherwise though, Cruis'n Blast is a good game. Well, just not having some stuff to get me back into it. Okay, I know September was freaking huge and I want to talk about the next game, but I want to shout out Deltarune Chapter 2. While I didn't put it in the year in review because it's only part of a whole game, the game was phenomenal and some of the most fun I had been on the internet all year. I will have a fuller review of it once the game eventually comes out. But anyways, on to October! Wow! The hype for this game was unreal when I first saw it at this year's Nintendo's E3. I mean, you all remember the ear rape I caused when it was revealed. Metroid Dread! Oh my god! It was completely out of nowhere. A new 2D Metroid story coming out in 2021. Seeing the gameplay and story behind the Metroid Dread's development kept me going with it even further. But what was it like playing the game? Well, it was utterly fantastic! I already elaborated most of what I said in a Twitter thread I made in October, but I want to elaborate on how much greatness this game brought with it. For one, I love the controls to this game. Each button has a very distinct purpose to it, even when just clicking the stick to activate the speed booster, which I didn't know I can do at the time. In fact, so much about how this game feels very much clicks with the player. The floatiness of Samus's jumps and the way you change and shoot projectiles just feels so good in general. Mercury's team really nailed down the way Samus should move in a 2D space in general, and I very much love it for that fact. The environments are some of the most well realized in the Metroid game by far. Seeing stuff in the background is honestly very cool. Just stopping for a moment to appreciate the background elements is very cool to see. Especially if you can see something that can be foreshadowed in a layered boss fight. It feels like Super Metroid in a way, where the environment shows you the progression rather than the story itself. The story, though, leaves much to be desired, but really, that has to do with Nintendo in general, though I do appreciate the holes that were remedied for this game. I won't get too specific for the sake of leaving out spoilers, but I'll just say this: Metroid is actually Bird Lady. The boss encounters in this game feel very right at home for Metroid, and these are the best bosses in a 2D Metroid game. The reappearance of a certain boss was very cool, and even can be skipped if you can get the bombs early. In fact, some boss fights have a certain skip or two that can be finished off very early, or just potentially one-shot them. Even the later annoying bosses that you would see more are very fun to fight against because of how well designed its patterns are. The final part of the game though leaves much to be desired, but it's still great regardless. I cannot even begin how much cool tech there is in this game. The Shine Spark puzzles are excellent, and I want this to be the future of 2D Metroid in general. Learning stuff like the pseudo beam and sliding to get to specific items early feels very rewarding and satisfying to pull off. There's still new tech to be learned that I want to try to do one of these days, and getting all the rewards in this game for the 4 endings and finishing the game 100% is good as well, and it doesn't take too much time to do it. Overall, this is the best game Nintendo has made for the Switch, and a must get for any Switch owners. I had so much fun with my Game of the Year. Heck, it's already in my top 10 best games of all time, because I still remember everything very fondly, and want to replay repeatedly whenever I feel like it. I'm glad that Mercury Steam and Nintendo can make the best action-adventure game they can ever make. Getting tired of Metroid yet? Well, no, because we go on to another Metroidvania, yo! Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was a very solid introduction to the Igavania formula, with going from one part of the game to the next in a very maze-esque way. Miriam is probably the best designed protagonist in this game, even though I really don't care about her character that much. The story is nothing to write home about, except when you get to face David Hayter a few times. I still don't get how 505 games were able to get Solid Snake in this game. Well, I really want to know why. But what really shines with this game is the gameplay. It's so much fun using the different abilities you can come across from defeating enemies, and find which one works best for you. My favorite one is summoning portraits and just shred through bosses' health with them. The practical abilities are also very fun, where the one you just become Sonic the Hedgehog and run super fast for some reason. It's great. I don't recommend getting all of them though, because getting the achievements in this game will take you many hours to do. But I find some of it to be very rewarding nonetheless. Overall, fun game. I just wish the story could be more interesting. Also, I can't wait for the DLC that will never arrive anytime soon. Haha, XD! Dan Salvato is a god and he truly knows what to put in the special editions. Even though it took a while to actually get here after the restate, thanks Cove! And when I finally got to play the full game and the rest of the endings, I didn't really have much to say about it. At first, the characters feel very stereotypical, and the dialogue just got me bored for the most part, until you get to that point, and everything starts to go, well, insane. You all know what it is until you get to that point in the game, so I won't say anything here. Even though in the main game I thought it was boring, the dialogue does start to catch up, and I ended up liking a certain character, that character being Sayori. But I ended up playing through the main game a few times, and that was it. Now, I would have given this game a 2.5 or a 3 out of 5 for the normal game, but what made me change my mind was the extra side stories made exclusively for this game. They single-handedly changed the girls as if there were no stereotypes associated with them in the first place, and just made them just be themselves. The writing is probably some of the best stuff I've ever read in a long time, and made me just tear up on occasion. And made me love these girls so much more. I'm so glad that something like this was made so I could just tell those DDLC fans to just shut up about Monica. I hope more people get to play these side stories because it is worth the extra $15. This is Mario Party Return to Form. and I adored so much of it. It's like my 7-year-old self was playing this game again, now with online multiplayer that works very well with this game. 5 boards from the N64 games make their return, and man, they received a glow up like I've never seen before. They play just like how I remember them, with a few changes to Peach's birthday cake and Horrorland. Overall though, they were excellent. The minigame selection is great as well, with so much of it pulling from the N64 games. Did I mention that I grew up with an N64 and the Mario parties that came with it? Even a bunch of games from the GameCube and the Wii Mario parties make a return as well in their best incarnations yet. The extra content such as buying stickers and music is also a huge plus in my book. And making your own Mario Party card is a nice addition as well. The minigame island stuff is very fun to play with friends, and just everything you can play with friends is very well designed. I hope that there would be future DLC with this game that would add more boards. That would make this a huge W for me. Play this game if you want the best online experience with your friends on a console with a poor online reputation. Released during a free trial event for Nintendo's Online, this is perhaps the only chance I get to play this masterpiece. Do I like it? Very much so. The downside of it, and I know this is a common complaint, is the controls. I played this game pretty much exclusively in handheld mode, and I just didn't like how the battles are just covered up by pressing my thumb on the screen. This game was made to just buy a stylus, which I wish Nintendo would make for games like these on its system. But the rest of the game was very great. The story and characters are very fun, and I love the music as well. I just love how this game combines a mix of different cultures all gathering in Tokyo and fitting in rather well into this world. Such as this out of nowhere taco stand in the middle of freaking Shibuya. Neku is probably one of the best RPG protagonists because of how much he grows and learns throughout the adventure. I love the lore around the game as well, such as how the real ground and the underground just coexisted with each other, and the latter just being a place where the dead can have a chance to come back into the real ground. Overall, a great game which I wish to play more of, but a certain other JRPG was drawing ever so closer. Finally! We come to perhaps the last game I end up finished this year, Shin Megami Tensei V. This is single-handedly the best JRPG I played this year. I love Trials of Mana and Fire Emblem Three Houses, but just from the playtime I had with this game, it absolutely made me keep going. One of the best aspects of this game is the awesome gameplay. The Treehouse presentation at E3 made me really want to try it out for myself because this is how you do a turn-based RPG with weakness mechanics. Being able to add another turn to yourself by finding out the weakness to an enemy or just landing a critical hit is so satisfying, especially combined with the Magatsuchi skill. And this game is challenging, even on normal difficulty, so being able to pull things off like this makes the battles feel super satisfying. The boss fights are, of course, the most challenging parts of the game, and being able to overpower them with so many things is just the icing on the cake for me. The demons in this game are very well worth your time to use, even some of the weaker ones, because the game gives you so many tools to use to make them stronger and on par with the main characters, such as stat increasing items and miracles that would affect the growth after demon fusions. Which, just hear this piano while making a demon really quick. Ah, so resonant. The lore of these demons is nice to see because I'm not much of a mythology guy, and seeing the purpose for these demons are a nice addition and nice read as well. The best demons are the ones that have unique skills that can help you out in your adventure. Such as Idun with her golden apple, which can heal and boost all your stats at the same time, and Yoshitsune with his attack that deals 8 critical hits all the time and not costing much MP. These are all very good. The story though, like a lot of games I played this year for some reason, is nothing special. Just like you can become a god and change the world by choosing this path sort of deal. I don't find it interesting, and I feel the same way with some of the other main characters. Except for Ichiro Dazai. He's he's probably the most relatable character. If you decide to play for the story, you will probably be a bit disappointed, unless you're a big Dazai fan. It's also a short game, around 50 hours to complete the first ending, if you are getting all the quests and stuff. I'm still playing it to get the rest of the endings and fully complete the Demon Compendium, so it'll take until next year to 100% this game. But play this game though, really. And that's all the games I finished this year. I played a wide variety of genres with a bunch of platformers and some JRPGs, also some visual novels and action-adventure games sprung up here and there, and a few racing games which included completing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the first time since 2017 when I got it. As of right now, the only games I'm probably going to finish up next year are 100%ing SMT5, finishing up Sin and Punishment on the N64 Online, and being Pokemon Shining Pearl, with the rest of the Bioshock collection being undecided at this point. Let me know what you think about this year and review in the comments, and make sure you like and subscribe if you like this. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. It was a long road coming to this. Until next time, see you on the other side!